From the creators born in an African country, synonymous with lions and the Maasai, comes a 2D platformer game, Mzito. Not to be confused with the weight metric. Mzito follows the quest of a young girl falling while collecting points, all to just dance to a waking lion. Get ready to witness the falls from a high place. Points you have no use for in-game. And most of all, get ready to dance. All starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, and Dean.
Hi and welcome to Jiwe Roundtables. Jiwe Roundtables is a show about games. It's about game developers and the stories and the struggles they go through as they make their games. We have a panel of fantastic game development experts, from artists to animators to developers and designers. And they give the game developers we've gotten on the platform to choose and to get feedback and to get information about how to make their games better and what's amazing about the games. We hope you'll enjoy this session and stay tuned for more. The game we're talking about today is Mzito. Mzito is a 2D platformer that is based on Africa with African heroes, African locations, and African lions. And we think it's a fantastic game for every African to play. So we were able to get some great developers, some great animators and artists to give their own feedback about the game, and George, the developer of the game, to listen to that feedback and give his own insights and his own opinions and why they made certain decisions. So have a listen at that.
I am ready when you are. We have a bit of feedback from some really great guys. Maybe I start off by teasing some of the names, and you can give me just the initial thoughts on the developer roundtable we were able to assemble. So we have Madiba Oliver from Kiro Games. I am sure you are a bit aware of what they do.
Yeah, I am very aware.
Yes, we have, I think your friend, Nick Hall from South Africa. We have Ahmed Mawi. He's pushing a new Godot revolution. He's from Masa. We have Lydia Dan from Kawia's Adventure. I'm sure you've seen how active they've been the last few weeks. Yes, of course there was me, there's Max from Jiwe, and then finally we have Ben Myers of Nyama.
Okay, nice.
Quite aware. So we tried as well as hard as possible to get a really high quality team together to give feedback. We hope that it's going to be interesting for you. We hope you will disagree with some of it. We hope you'll agree with some of it. We hope that it goes well. So
let's see.
Yeah, thoughts?
Sure, why not? Early thoughts on the game. I kind of like the concept behind it. I've always liked 2D platformers, and I found the controls really interesting. It has kind of like a cultural story behind it, so I really like that. I also saw how they were monetizing in terms of buying. I think there's some in-game microtransactions about it as well, but I haven't explored that bit yet. So early thoughts are, I think the game is really good. I think there's a lot to explore in terms of the art and the sound as well. I have the iOS version. My version didn't have sound. I don't know if that was the same with everyone or just the iOS version. But I think there's a lot more to explore.
Anything to say up to that point?
Well, yeah, I'm happy that he enjoyed it, and 2D platformers definitely. It's actually a whole idea there, because we were trying to, at least at the time, my idea was to sort of romanticize the old era of like pixel art, and the games used to play in the kids them days, maybe in the 90s. So I wanted to give Kenya a bit of that, and that's actually why we chose pixel art and like the whole style. But And the bug for iOS has just been a whole, I don't know. Getting on iOS is just a whole hassle because of all the things you need to do and the process. But yeah, the sound thing, I'm super sad about that. But yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure if it's still happening now, but we should have fixed it.
Oh, okay. So, hi, I'm Lydia, an animator and game developer from Kenya, currently working on Kawiya's adventure. And what was unique about Mzito to me was I admire the minimalistic art style because that's what I've been trying to achieve over the past year, and I still can't quite get that. So yes. So if you could link me up with an artist, that would be really fun.
Diba, your artist contacts.
True, but that artist was actually very, very, very pricey.
Oh, really?
Because we got help for the art by a couple of people. The artists that did it were, because there was the environments, there was the UI, and there was the animations of the characters and the lions and stuff. Any characters or like the powers and the visual effects. Yeah.
Ben?
Yeah, I'll go.
Are you able to jump in?
Yeah, I would. The three words I would use would be aggressive monetization strategy. Very quickly, the monetization was.
Interesting. Yeah, but it did get more aggressive as the game went along. When the game was actually released at the beginning, it was not aggressive, but as it got to its final, I guess, and to its later versions, it got the monetization strategy started getting more aggressive and more aggressive because you wanted to test things out. You wanted to know what works. Do ads work, or do in-app purchases work better? So yeah, it got a lot more aggressive after that. Yeah, so I understand.
Being pushed to my face even before I really had a chance to experience the game. And after you finish some of the levels, the advert comes up immediately, and then after you watch the advert, you get another prompt to watch an advert to get stuff. And some of the menus you click through, it just pushes stuff in your face to buy stuff, which you don't even really have any context for. You don't know what the things you're buying are useful for. So I think it tries to monetize you a bit too quickly before you really understand what the value of spending money in the game would even be. I think the mechanic is an interesting one and it's fun, but I think the tutorialization of the first few levels is a bit too dense, and it tries to put stuff on you a bit too quickly before you really understand some of the mechanics. You're getting thrown new ones as well. So by the second or third level, you kind of feel a bit confused about what's happening. The art's really beautiful. I think the UI is maybe a bit incoherent with some of the other art in the game, but the actual in-game art is really cool. I like it a lot. I think some of the levels I need to be iterated on a little bit, but the mechanics are really fun. The art's really beautiful. I think the monetization strategy is a bit too aggressive. That would kind of be those were my initial thoughts about it.
So yeah, he did mention a good amount of stuff. Monetization strategy, I think that was too aggressive. I think that I did talk about. He also mentioned the tutorial, and he mentioned how new mechanics are constantly being thrown at you. Yeah, we had a hard time, like trying to explain the tutorial, and this was mainly because we were, in terms of making the game, we're almost like, I'd say halfway through the game. Developing the game is when we went back and made a tutorial, which was a very big mistake. The tutorial should be one of the first things you actually make or develop when you're actually working on your game, because you need to understand how I'm going to teach people how to actually play my game. And yeah, it was a mistake we made, and we ended up paying for it by having to front load the game with this really long tutorial that really ended up affecting a lot of people. We've tried to improve it along the way, but we realized we needed to teach players progressively, like each mechanic one at a time, and that would definitely improve them. So anything they don't need to know immediately, though, you don't need to teach them. You teach them much later in the game when they actually do need that skill or ability or something.
Awesome. Happy to hear that. Maybe continue.
I'm gonna need to log off soon, so can I'll just quickly get my feedback.
Yes.
So So I mean, the kind of the original art that was there. So I mean, I've seen Mzito back from 2017. When it was first released. Sort of that original sort of pixel art, I think it's good. I think the animations are really nice. Like there's a lot. The game has quite a lot of character and a lot of soul, and a lot of the monetization stuff was added after the fact. But yeah, I think it's time to move on. I think George needs to move on to a new game. This has had its run, and it hasn't worked. He's now kind of flogging a dead horse, and he's trying to adapt things which weren't built in with the original design. Yeah, like I said, it's been 5 years now, maybe. Yeah, no, 4. One of those.
17.
Since it was initially released to kind of now. So, like, I don't know.
Rate of reply.
Yes. And the thing is, it was also really true because at the time, even I didn't even want to continue developing Mzito. I was tired. I was done. I was like, I'm done with this thing. But then more opportunities kept on coming. More interested people kept on hitting us up. So I had to continue maintaining the game at the time because it was what was working. Yeah. And like, I felt like Mzito got its hype at the end of its cycle. At least international attention came at the end of its cycle, which is very interesting. Also, the back burner, we were working on stuff. We were working on Riziki, and a couple of prototypes here and there to do like some consultancy and some work on the side. But true, we need to move on, and it's definitely something we're already doing, for sure. So yeah, it's sound advice.
Okay, awesome. Let's see what Nick has to add.
How much more iteration improvement can be really kind of done to this? Like the concept is good, but it didn't find its mark for whatever reason. And you can kind of see that a lot of the additions that have been made haven't had kind of that care and attention added to them like there was in the original thing, and it's actually just diminishing from the original product. Like, if you did need to monetize it, you should try and maybe get this into, instead of aggressively relying on the free-to-play thing, which isn't really suitable towards the game anyway. You should be looking at maybe trying to get this into like a subscription service or something else. But really, he needs to be moving on to a new title, because now he's just kind of like wasting time trying to flog something which I don't know if we'll ever pick up,
Okay, thank you for that, Nick.
And one more joyful note.
Maybe just to get some clarity out of me. What's your thought on the overall mechanics, art, and creative?
It's good. Like, and the tilting thing. I mean, I said this when I first, because this game was submitted to a lot of Digilab Africa back in the day. I think this was the original winner. It's a good game. It's solid. It's fun. It has a nice little control. The whole using the tilt mechanic is good. It's novel. It makes sense. But it's done. And like the art direction, like I said, the original art direction was good. Like the little animations, I dig it when like your character at the end kind of dances when you're waking the line. Like it's all like it's good. It's got character, but it's not enough, right? And the thing is, I don't know if there's much more refinement that can happen in here that isn't going to kind of take away. There's fundamental things that are going to need to change to take this to a free-to-play experience that. It's not going to work. So either iterate on this, kind of make version 2, start from scratch again with the learnings of what did and didn't work and kind of implement that. But trying to kind of like slapdash, add on and, improve and sync and trying to change the model, because this was originally pitched as a premium game and then it kind of moved to free to play afterwards, and that never works. Like, if you're going to bring full free-to-play, you go free-to-play from the very beginning. And you can kind of see that it's had that kind of slapdash shift to try and play to free-to-play mode. And you're better off build on this. There's a brand here, right? There's a definite strong brand you could build from the art style, but it needs to be, the effort that's being put into this needs to be channeled into a new game. Instead of just trying to provide this. This is the first in the series, cool. Move on, build on. Go from there. And if you're going to aggressively go for a free-to-play model, then from the get-go, you're going to need to do that, right? Instead of trying to shoehorn it into a previously premium title. Because it sticks out like a sore thumb, which I think is why the monetization hasn't worked. I'm assuming it hasn't worked. Because it's like, say, it's so kind of aggressive and kind of in your face, and it doesn't feed through into the mechanics itself. But a lot of the time I found that it's superfluous. There's kind of no drive and no need to monetize. You just kind of play the game, and that's normally a casualty of if you had a game that was designed originally as a free to play, as a premium experience. As they moved on, I need to log off because I'm late to my other call. Thank you, everyone. Okay. I'll chat you later.
Thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks.
But yeah, I think we touched on most of the stuff you already said. The monetization stuff came in later, and normally that normally happens with games. You tend to want to finish your game. At the end, all that stuff you keep on adding on sometimes doesn't even really matter. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't really make sense. You'd be able to tell yourself stop. It's enough. Go on. Continue. So yeah, completely understand them. Like everything you said, do all these things early. Tutorial, do them early. Monetization strategy, do it early. It needs to be something that's a core part of your game, because I said it's core part of the value system in your game.
Okay,
We
awesome.
can continue.
Are you feeling good to go then? Are you feeling good enough play? Are you happy?
How many people made that game? How much would they were?
I believe it was a team of 5. I believe it was a team of 5.
Okay.
Designer, developer, artist, animator, musician. I could be wrong on the digits.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, from what I see, the graphics are really good. You sense someone who really want to be professional, and that's something I think.
Maybe some clarity on the overall team. That was it.
So okay. In terms of the team, there was me, who was the lead developer and designer on the team. We had Andrew Mahua. Andrew Mahua was the creative director. So a lot of a good amount of the conceptualization came from him. Also, he was actually the artist before we started getting external artists to come on the project. And of course, we had a character artist, character and VFX artist. We had a sound designer also joined the team. His name called Hooker the Traveling Monk. Really cool guy. Gave us some really awesome tracks. Also, the theme song to Mzito I thought was really good. And we had an environmental artist who was called Anthony Leno. So yeah, about a team of 5 people. Yeah.
That must be encouraged. I can feel the need to do a good work here. You can feel it. Now I understand what the other says about the fact that, and I think it's something really hard for an African studio to hear, because you have this idea that your first game will be the good one, and that just a matter of, upgrade it. And from what I see, this is the first game. They delivered something. There is a lot of version by the way on the store, so they have to keep just one. My point of view, they have to keep just one, because when someone type Mzito in the search bar, it comes across 5 versions. It's not good for a game, I think. They can just keep one. Now, like Nick said, I don't know if they can, because I know the money, etc., can be very hard. Is it a way for them to start another game with what they learned on this one, instead of trying maybe to fix this one and make it a hit? I don't know, because I think it's the captain of his own ship, so they are the only one who know where they can bring the brand. But I think there is a potential here. What I may say that from what I see is the game is designed for which market and which kind of target, because what I can see is the mistake that we do, all of us go through it, even me and my team. We have this thing to make the game we want to play. Every developer in the world because it seems like, I love it to play this type of game, and we do my own with just African context. Yes, but the other part is, I don't know, and like I said, take it for what it is. It's not a biblical truth. So I think, did they ask themselves that, is it possible for this game maybe to be marketed outside of Africa? No, I don't think so, because smartphone game outside of Africa, man, is nuclear war for smartphone games out of there. Now in Africa, you have this little equation that I found, and I think I was write a blog about it. We African developers, we have all the problem in the world and very less assets. But one greater dilemma we have is the following. We are geeks. We want to. Okay, sorry, Ahmed. Sorry, I'm trying to be straightforward. I talk too much. So the thing is,
we still have
we make games.
Yes.
Okay, we make games for geeks that we are. We know we make games that we love to play. But the thing is, our public, our market are not geek people. If you realize, I think everyone has this feeling. Like you can make a fantasy game, but at the end of the day, the people who have the drivers to understand fantasy world in Africa are not the one with the major smartphones user base. So on some way, if you have to do it, you have to take in mind that you will be the one who will educate people to fantasy somehow. So when you do a game like that, you don't have to think that everyone will understand the scheme. No, you have to put your game like, this will be the first fantasy game someone may install in his smartphone. So I have to build my game thinking about it. You see? Because you cannot think that there are already drivers installed in the brain of your players in Africa. So that's it. And so that's why I feel it's like the game is good, but maybe the marketing was the thing. Did they have a target in mind? Because when you make a game and you say everyone will like it, you will have a problem. And
maybe that would be a perfect point for you to jump in.
So true, yes. Thinking about your market is something you should definitely know at the beginning. Another thing we didn't, like I said, this thing started off as a passion project. So it was a passion project that ended up getting a lot of good feedback initially, that became a full product once it was thought about and conceptualized. So the very beginning was something about, it was mainly about passion. And you're thinking about passion, you're not really thinking about target market and who's going to play this game. I think we touched on this at the very beginning. It's really important for you to think about who's going to play your game, or you end up making a game for yourself.
Yeah. Generally, it's not. I don't think it's a bad concept that would really. Generally, they've got a slightly good idea. I think they've got an idea. Yes, I guess how the graphics and the animation are playing out, that is not really. There isn't appealing feedback for the player, and I guess the second point that I put up was, what was it again? What's it again? What was the second point I put up was...
It's something to do with animation?
Yeah, so the graphics and the animation, I think that's what it is. And I think, yes, it's a good idea that they had the storyline as part of the gameplay and all that, but at a point it feels like you're sort of trying to understand the story more than trying to get to play the game, which is it can make people drop off if they don't have a page.
Okay. On that note, what do you think about the popping text?
The popping text, is it?
The narrative of the game, when prior to a level you have text that would try to instruct you and bring you into the law. What was your thought of it? Yeah.
It was a bit confusing, but I think it's because of the visual layout, the graphical layout. It was initially a bit confusing, but I remember the first time I played it, I didn't realize that there was supposed to be visual cues or where the player was. So when I was shaking the screen, I realized the player was at the top. which was a surprising thing. So I think that would. I mean, the graphics, like the graphics and animation element and user experience, I think, is what we overlap on. And also, when the eye doesn't, when the eye catches something that is not that much quality, I think some people can get this.
Yeah, the retro pixelated art style is a very, and it is easy for something back. But I think that's fair. But what did you love? What was absolutely amazing?
I mean, the storyline and how it blends with the gameplay, like that is it's a good idea. I mean, there's a number of good ideas about the game apart from what I just mentioned. So everything else is okay. It's just, I guess, maybe the experience that is a letdown. That might be the problem. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Apple. And finally, Madiba.
Well, that was in 2019.
Yeah, I was present. Oh, later in the afternoon after it rained. I just remember that because it started raining now. I liked this game and it has developed a lot from then to the point that I didn't recognize it. So it develops quite a bit from then to the point that I didn't recognize it, and I've just realized when I've seen an image of myself on your Facebook page. So, yeah. So I like the direction that the game is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I really like the direction that the game is going. I am really into retro games. It's not. Let's see. What I would say is, first of all, I have no idea, no industry. I'm just known as a person who makes pretty art. That's all I am in this industry. So, but from what I've been told often, what I've been told when I'm developing projects is a good story sells a lot more. A good story sells a lot more than people give it credit for. Like, you already have the very good bones, and I'm pretty sure you can develop the story just a bit further so you can make it a bit more of a hook, like The Witcher. The Witcher series 1, 2, 3, I've played them all just because of the story. So it goes a long way. For instance, I'm pretty terrible at coding. I consider myself 50% knowledgeable, but just enough to make stuff move around. But if you provide a good story, and say, I can also do this, you easily be able to get backers. I understand it shifted from pay to play to free to play from the conversation earlier. I've never seen a pay to play game in reality. I have that thing checked. I do not want to see games that I have to pay for. So that's just a point of view from an extremely casual gamer. If it's on my phone, I'm not going to pay for it, but if it's on PC, people gladly pay because it's PC, the step up. What else? Oh yeah, I think pixel art is all of it, but I know a lot of people are trying to go for this hyper-realistic stuff, but that's not as fun as just pixels. Pixels are awesome, so kudos for that. That's basically all I can say. Yes, I mean, everything is always lore. I am a lore fanatic when it comes to games. I don't really play games for graphics, for the user interface, or anything of the sort. I just play the game so that I can experience a different story. I hate League of Legends, but I can narrate Seraphine's backstory. I can narrate the entire KDA's. I can narrate all of their stories because that's all I'm here for. So what I like is it's a new story. It's still a bit unrefined. I like things, but I think that's more of a personal preference in taste to me. Like, if what I would change something is have an overhanging. I'm still not sure if I'm still inside what I'm talking to here.
No, we can hear you.
having an overreaching plot would work pretty well with your current setting, because it allows the player to just go about doing their stuff, but understanding that there is something going on with every action that they're doing. So, the part is new lore. Very, very difficult. Rare to find African lore. Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
I think she's just basically giving you a big thumbs up on the law and just the amount of work in the narration and telling the story. Which I believe also for me is one of the strongest parts of the game, and it definitely adds value to the IP that you want to create, and the fact that you built a pretty good story through a mobile game, which is really
Exactly. And that's one of the things we were also considering is, will people take it seriously if it's a mobile game? That's one thing. Because people tend to not relate like that, or telling like epic stories and stuff, or big IPs coming from mobile. Okay, some have these days, but what I realized is the mobile space in Africa is a bit different from the rest of the world. If you notice, most people get into their access to the internet is from their phones. So it's a more important thing. So I even think that mobile will be give a couple of years. I think the mobile just gaming space in Africa will look so different from the rest of the world, because people are trying to make those big experiences, but on mobile. Maybe condense them in some kind of way, or maybe condense them, or it's put them in a different form. But they tend to do AAA on mobile, and I've been seeing even some good amount of companies try to do that. So it should be interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
And finally, we have our last reviewer.
For me, I really wasn't into the story, because the type of game itself felt like a free-falling game. So something like Angry Birds kind of, or Candy Crush kind of. So for me, the story didn't make sense. But I love the fact that you have an African falling and collecting points. That's the most addictive part of that game. Like, I feel it's on the par, I can't say with Candy Crush, but in terms of how much addictive the game can be, well, I give it props for that. For the story-wise, I just tried looking for like the skip button. In essence,
it's perfect.
Exactly, perfect timing. And we knew, and funny enough, this is a perfect example of something that is so interesting. If you want to get a female audience in your game, put more lore and more story. But the male audience just want the action, they want to play the game.
One option that I'm fighting, I'm just collecting points and points from a falling stance. But in terms of probably the market that we're trying to market the game to, maybe is how they put it out there. Because for such a game, as much as retro is a niche specific kind of thing, a lot of people would have been addicted to this game if it was marketed correctly. Like there's another game I downloaded last week. You just create shortcuts. I think it's called Shortcuts. And it's the same principle as this one. And that one uses like Roblox kind of style. You see, so if you're not into visuals and stuff, but you're just into an addictive game, and it doesn't have story, you just create shortcuts to get to the finish point. And it has different levels with different characters. It doesn't even get harder. Same to this Mzito game.
If I recall, I think he mentioned to me later that he watched an ad through Mzito, and then into this hyper-casual game that's just racing through some path and creating shortcuts and etc. So you were able to convert a player into
That's changes.
Yeah. Which is interesting. And I understand even some of the stuff he says. We were trying not to be like too hyper casual with our game, because when it's too hyper casual, then you end up stripping away a lot of the things, and you can't even build an IP off of that, which is like similar to the kinds of games he's mentioning. Super hyper casual games, tiny experiences. You don't even need to pay attention to the presentation, because they're just something that's been used to communicate that core mechanic or something that is trying to mention. So I understand. It depends. Many people come to your game for different things.
the whole concept of of the African falling and collecting coins, that was amazing. The whole story I did not even bother because it wasn't making sense. Yeah.
Okay, understood. I think that's fair. That's okay. Maybe we have Lydia next, and then Max.
I thought
Lydia, anything else you'd like to add from Anya?
Okay. Yeah, Lydia had dropped off.
Not really. I just say if you build it up a bit more and maybe you release it with, I'm not sure how you can drum up hype because Kenyans have a very strong sense of fear of missing out. Yeah, you can drum up the hype a bit when you're good.
Okay.
What was it? What was this game that came out on Nairobi X? Yeah, like Nairobi X. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, Nairobi X. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Lydia. Max, please feel free to.
Yeah, just to add, I think definitely it's a good game. And what Madiba said was really interesting. Like, who are they targeting? Particularly, are they targeting the African audience abroad? I think all these things matter in some way. In terms of the design, if it's too complex, then maybe people in Africa wouldn't be too interested. If it's not complex, maybe other people won't be interested. But overall, I think it was a great game. They've been developing it for a while, and I think they've done a good job.
Oh, is there more?
Yeah, I think
Madiba is listening to this call. I will invite you. Yeah.
No, sorry.
Okay. So, Lydia, woman first. What do you want to say? Okay, she's talking about it. Yeah, for all game developers listening to this.
No, I was just confused because everything went quiet. But that's a natural thing. Sorry.
Okay.
So, guys, I invite all the studio to not believe in what I call the promised land. Don't put your that's the mistake I have made, and I think a lot of founders.
That is what Madiba is saying. Video game creators, we put ourselves in a position of manufacturers. So you really can't bank the entire industry based on this one product. Like if you are a Fortune 500 company and you have 500 companies working on different products, that's how the big companies should do that. Like you're making games and you're making simple games and hard games, not sure which one is going to hit and which one is going to be a miss. But banking on just one game and then it flops, oh my goodness.
In fact, you can even bank on one game because it depends on your strategy. When you see but when you bank on one game, it's just that remember that because banking on one game, let me show you, I have a lot of stuff. The thing is, when you see the guys at Clash of Clans, they did it on design thinking process, where in fact they let the game grows and grows and grows based on feedback. So the thing is, you can bank on one game, but you have to change your design pattern to make the game be the good one after version number 12. There is a way to do that. Try to search a little bit on design thinking if you already know it's good. If not, search about it. And yeah, but where I'm talking with you is that don't bank all your studio on the fact that this game must be a hit. Go on the fact that do everything you can to be a hit, but if it's not, quickly shift your mindset with the team on what have we done good, what have we done wrong, and what can we do for the next project. That's it. A lot of studio die just because the mindset is there.
Yeah.
We are pioneers, it will be hard. You have to we cannot make it as we want. So we have to get a conqueror mindset. I'm not a revolutionary. Revolutionary people are always tired after two battle. If they don't win quick, they are tired. When you are a conqueror, you know that you can be there for 20 years.
Oh yes. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing session. Any final thoughts? Any?
Well, it's been interesting sharing. I think this is a good amount of feedback. I like what people have said. I also really like this for Riziki, even probably earlier on, so I can get a general taste of what people think. Very early on in terms of feedback, but I think this kind of sharing is something important. I think more people should be open to it, because us sharing our ideas is how we make sure we can actually crack the code, if that makes sense. Sharing information and coming together is a big part of us of us activating that true potential. Funny enough, us unifying, sharing information, sharing networks, and this is one of the steps to doing that. So I love the experience. I got good amount of feedback, got a different kind of angle on some things. Maybe a good amount of things I did know, and a good amount maybe I didn't know the way they were, didn't know in the same way, or I didn't know the effects. I got insight on a couple of different things about the game, and was also encouraged because despite people saying that we've been developing Mzito too long, I can tell there's excitement for our next game. So people are like, yo man, make a new game. I'm like, okay, fine. Sawa, nafanya. Okay, thumbs up. So I'm happy to hear that, because me just means that people are excited to seeing what we can do next. And yeah, man, I'm also hyped for it too. Hyped to show what we're doing, because it came from an interesting place, and I think it can, if it works, at least for the goals we set out for it, it can allow us to bring more conversations about sound into our games, which is not something that's been a primary thing, about sound and music and how that sort of comes in, which is a big part of African culture if you think about it. Imagine that whole space now mixed with games. It can come up with something very interesting. Okay, it's such an interesting conversation. But yeah, awesome experience. Looking forward to being the panel for whoever else. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. This has been fantastic. We can't wait to see Riziki. We can't wait to see more games from you. We hope this has been helpful, even though you might not work too much on Mzito going forward. We still hope that it is useful, whether it's an update sometime down the road or just a new version, who knows? But yeah, thank you so much for making the time. Thank you so much for opening up. And
definitely,
Jiwe, we can't wait for the next roundtable.
Sure. Can't wait for it too.
So Mzito is a great game. It has so many fascinating levels, so many fascinating locations. It has a few different mechanics, and it's one of the most successful games ever made in Africa. It is a game you should definitely play, and it is a game that our panelists enjoyed reviewing, enjoyed commenting on, and so on. Some of the things they loved about the game that we did too were the levels, the locations, and the characters within the game. They were very unique, they were fairly entertaining, and the art style was one of the rarest to see in games today. The style is called retro style, and it's an art style that was of course famous in the 90s when games were smaller, they were simpler, and it's a style that is making a comeback in the current game development scene. So we've got some interesting feedback from the reviewers, but what do you think? What's your thoughts on the game? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you dislike it? Give us some of your feedback in the comments below, and stay tuned for more updates and more videos from Jiwe Roundtables.